Hey, there we go, Richie Valens. Come on, let's go. 1958. You're with Joe T right here at the Soda Shop. And just a few minutes ago, I mentioned a brand new show making its debut on Oldies and More Radio today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and each Monday, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The name of the show, The Mop Tops and the King, with my friend Steve Chelmsford. Steve is on the phone with us right now, and good morning to you, my friend.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for having me.
You are totally welcome. We're so happy to have this show, and I think our listeners are going to be really just taken and knocked their socks right off, because this is a great show. I loved listening to bits and pieces of it. Steve, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and about your show?
Sure. Yeah, the name of the show, The Mop Tops and the King, and it's Beatles and Elvis music with some fun surprises in between. And it's in its 12th year, and the show started pretty much by accident about 12 years ago. I was out in the Nevada desert. I worked for the Air Force as an engineer for 30 years, and I'm an amateur musician. Anyway, I was out on a field test at the Tonopah Test Range in Nevada. I bumped into this guy who had his own community radio station in Goldfield, Nevada.
Uh-huh.
Radio Goldfield. It was like 87.9, something like that. And we just started talking. I bumped into him, and he told me about his radio show, and I told him I was an amateur musician, and I wondered if he would play some of my songs on his show. And we became friends. About a year later, he asked if I wanted to have my own show.
Wow.
So I never thought about it, and it wasn't something that I really thought I would ever do.
Uh-huh.
And my two favorite artists growing up, Elvis and the Beatles.
Hey,
so I said, hey, I'll do a show about Elvis and the Beatles. And it started on Radio Goldfield, one station. And I just started, after about a year, I started pitching the show to other stations. And now it's heard 12 years later on over 100 stations.
Wow.
And I'm really thrilled to be on your station. You have a really, it's excellent. I really love your station.
Thank you, Steve. And the folks should know now that each Monday between 4 and 5 p.m., your show will air on Oldies and More Radio. And each show going to be different folks from the other, but you're going to be hearing two of the greatest acts of all time. I mean, hard to beat the Beatles, hard to beat the King.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's hard to put a bad show together when you're talking Elvis and Beatles music.
Really?
And it's the only show that I know of out there that features both Elvis and the Beatles specifically. And just so your listeners know, we also play a variety of other artists. Well, we play solo Beatles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo for their solo career. But we also play covers. And we also play artists that relate to the Beatles and Elvis. Occasionally,
Sure.
Buddy Holly or Carl Perkins, stuff like that. Billy Preston, and it goes on and on. If there's an artist that relates to the Beatles or Elvis some way, I'll find a way to squeeze some of those artists in the show.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those artists out there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, Steve, I thank you so much for stopping by this morning. I wanted to mention your show. We have a promo, folks, on our Oldies and More Radio Facebook page announcing Steve's show, so you can jot the times down in case you forget that I told you it was on between 4 and 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I know
I owe you a new promo, too. I will get that to you.
Okay, thank you. And I know you're going to enjoy the show because, as I said before, you can't go wrong with Elvis or the Beatles. I mean, wow. Number 1 and number 2 all time on the music charts, those two.
Right. Oh, and I need to say I like Elvis and the Beatles equally. I don't know if I'm one of the only people to be able to say that, but it's true. I like them both equally. So there you go.
There we go. Steve, thank you, my friend, and we look forward to your show this afternoon, and welcome to Oldies and More Radio.
Yes, Joe, thanks so much for having me on the show today.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.